All right. Hey. It's been a while, but hey, we are back on the radio, back in person. Hey, brother Brian and brother Marcus here at the voice of the community, KIEZ, which is 106.7 FM right here in Monroe. Brother Marcus, hey, what's going on?
Oh man, everything's good. I can't complain. I'm here, excited to be here. Hey, voice of the community, KIEZ. You know what it is.
Yeah, well, brother, I'm glad to see you because I know that you're over there in Virginia, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, because I know that some of those police officers over there just harassed a young military officer by pepper sprayed him all in the face, and I don't know if you were you did you hear about that
Now
in
I ain't get a chance to hear about that, but I
Wisner,
mean,
Virginia? He's an army officer, so some I don't know what Wisner is close to you, but he's somewhere close to an army base, and the police officers did a traffic stop, and the young man did not. He's an army officer, did not want to get out the vehicle, so the police end up violating his rights, pepper spraying him, and all that. And this is all over national news right now. And so a lot is taking place all over the nation, even right here in Monroe. They say that a young man ended up dying uh, in the hands of the police here not too long ago in Monroe. And you hear about the shootings that are taking place all over the world. So we just at a continuous stage of disarray, but the people are always at a point of saying, when is it going to get better? And my response to that is that it gets better once we make it better. And that's
right,
why we're going to start focusing our show back where we started, from the roots, from the basics. Focus on the FIPs and the CIPs, the formerly incarcerated person and the currently incarcerated person, because this population is being so discriminated against. We forget to even mention them in our daily equations about success in our communities. Now, and if we don't talk about it here, the voice of the community, it looks like it would get overlooked, because when it comes time to the census, it comes time to adding the individuals up in the population, paying taxes, circulating the dollar. We want to count that population then, but when it comes time to a improvement of social economics, we don't want to include that class of individuals, which is a total form of discrimination. So we have to speak up and speak loudly, focus on how to reduce recidivism and also alternatives to incarceration.
oh, that's a heavy task. Like you say, it's a lot of things happening all over the country. It's distractions in the sense that that's why I kind of not I kind of haven't been looking at the news and all of that because of the George Floyd situation, the trial, all the different things that's going on and other things that's happening in America. We paying no attention to. Like you say, the rehabilitation process of the currently incarcerated individual or the ones that came out of institutions that has a problem with mental health and all of those issues, and trying to be able to survive in a world that's not conducive to them. It's a lot, man. So just even to focus on this, we live in a society that's built on prison population, because we got 2.3 million people currently incarcerated and tens of millions that have been incarcerated that people never talk about. Tens of millions that have been incarcerated that people never talk about. When you look at it, it's like it's it's like it's like misunderstood. It's like misunderstood, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, and people not talking about it. Like myself, I'm currently I was incarcerated. I did 10 years in prison. Outside of coming out, no help. I started everything on my own uh, by disciplining myself while I was incarcerated to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna provide for myself once I'm out in society. I'm gonna do something different instead of doing what I was doing. For us, I was selling drugs or whatnot. So there wasn't no rehabilitation course for me inside the prison except for me. I was the rehabilitation. I said I wanted to do something for myself. These are hidden words that people talk about. Oh man, you got rehabilitations places inside of prison. No, that's not true. You know, uh, when you come out, they're gonna help you. No, that's not true. And it got very few programs that help deprogram the individuals coming in and out of those doors.
So let's talk about that. I'm hearing that also I guess you want to say the perspective or the national narrative now about the word rehabilitate. Now I know you're in the construction industry and you're currently in the business model of building from the ground up brand new. But after you all build up from the ground up brand new and years down the line, if that home is not properly serviced, not taken care of, 10 to 15 years, it may need to be rehabilitated, brought back to its original state, brought back to its newness. So this is the narrative that I'm hearing, rehabilitation. And so that's telling me that they we for some reason we are allowing, or we get to the stage of seeing something that was new and allowing it to dwindle down to a less than desirable state, then we want to rehabilitate. So why not? We should focus on reducing recidivism, and by doing that, we start off from a young age of educating the individual. So since we can't grab them that young, we're going to focus on reducing recidivism through reformulating, re-educating, and redefining the individual. And like you said, the vision, the mindset for yourself. And we want to bring your narrative to the table here at the community roundtable, and let's evaluate that. What we do here at the roundtable. We want to talk about the vision, because you mentioned before you got out, you had to redefine and reformulate your vision. So you had to have an idea where you wanted to go. You saw the end in mind. And by that, that's why you've always worked diligently. You've had some shortcomings, but you got back up, wiped yourself off, and kept moving forward through your own stages of rehabilitating yourself. Because until we accept that personal responsibility, no one is obligated to assist us. It would be kind if we can run across that, but until we do for ourselves, we shouldn't expect anyone else to do for us. It's about us. So during your uh, uh, time over there in the federal side of the house, you had to refocus your vision. What? How did you come about the refocus of your vision from the time of your inception in there to the time you were released? What changed your mind to refocus your vision?
Well, I was just doing what we do at the voice of the community. I I was evaluating all things. So when I was evaluating all things, I was evaluating myself. What do I bring to the table? At that point, I didn't have a high school diploma. Uh, I wasn't. I hadn't had no continuing education for us, college programming or nothing. So I decided to do that. I got my GED and went on to educate myself to a social degree in business. So I was doing that mentally, fixing me mentally to be prepared to obtain a job or either create my own business once I got released. So with the education kills the recidivism rate. They say 85% of people that uh, educate themselves while incarcerated will never return. And the people in the penal institutions know this, but they don't push that narrative. You know, it's like a warehouse. So if the person hasn't decided to fix himself or herself, then they just fall victim to the doors of recidivism keep opening up. You know, prisons are like the McDonald's of America. You know, McDonald's got the largest uh, uh, they the largest facilitators of property and real estate in the United States. And prisons are almost just like that. You got 1,833 prisons in the United States. That's kind of crazy, but that's where we at. We living in a prison state of mind, not understanding what's real and what's fake. So now you get incarcerated for trying to become a drug dealer, non-violent crime that'll get you 20 or 30 years. I mean, you talking about 20 or 30 years in a federal institution doing nothing. you know, sitting in a Desmo crypt or what they call a shadow box for 20 years. You don't do nothing but read and you know, look out your window, go hit the weight pile, you know, not stimulating yourself to be able to go out and do something for self outside of incarceration. So I had to evaluate me. And that's what I did to be able to move forward outside incarceration, because I knew there was no rehabilitation systems out there for me once I came home. I came home and with nothing. I had to start from ground zero. Nobody gave me $100, $200. You know, when you come home, they had a rehab. I mean, uh, what the little things is when you go to halfway houses, but they take half the money that you make upon your release. You know, to get a job, you got to get out and get a job. And if you're not qualified to work nowhere, they'll find you a job or whatever the case may be. Or, you know, you got to put yourself in position to be able to obtain a job, but they take half the cash flow. So you really back at square zero once you get out.
Yeah, let's break that down. What you're sharing with us, you shared a lot of different points. You saying that now the some of the aspects of the prison system has now become a retail chain. Also, we want to talk about the psychological aspects of it, because in psychology, we learned that we all are a product of our environment. So if we out here in the so-called free world and our social economic environment is barely struggling, putting together an opportunity to provide a legacy, an opportunity to purchase property or to sustain ourselves. So if that is the mindset or the learned behavior out here in the so-called free world where there are so many opportunities, imagine the being a product of your environment if you're in what you call it a Desmo crypt and a shadow box within so many inches. If no one around you is reading, learning, re-educating themselves, so that individual for a period of time picks up that learned behavior. So that tells me there must not be a form of rehabilitation inside the prisons. And to add on to that, I don't know where we get the mindset thinking that the criminal justice system is going to incarcerate an individual and also rehabilitate an individual. In my mindset, brother, that is the wrong concept to even focus on. So you're telling me you want someone to incarcerate you and then also turn around and rehabilitate you? Why would they do that if you are a source for continuous revenue stream? Let's not, that's not truthful there. The truth is, it starts at the dinner table in our home. It starts in the community, and it starts before any of that with the individual. But if the individual has these visual images around them and they're seeing a certain lifestyle taking place in their life, we all are creatures of habit. We will duplicate that until we can see something different, something better. So we have to get to that stage of identifying a better social status in our communities. And as men, we must become the role models in our community. So from an environmental status, being inside does not rehabilitate. Being on the inside, once again, it just allows for organizations to capitalize on this product of providing services for an individual. So it's going to take us all as a community, from the faith-based community, from the corporations, the nonprofits, the government side, the population here. Once they come into the community, they pay taxes, they acquire jobs, they have families just like we all do. So we shouldn't discriminate against that population. What we should do is get to the stages of reforming, redefining an individual, how we all can play an equal part in our community. Because I stand by the old theory that if we are neighbors, if your house catches on fire, I don't help you put that fire out, that fire will come over to my home and so then destroy my home. So we must work together because we are better together.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to look at the word rehabilitation means the act of restoring someone back to health. So most of our stuff stems from mental health issues. You know, you got the guys in prison who from a lack of education, they fall victim to you know, doing drastic things to be able to 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 provide a lifestyle for themselves, you know, or for herself. You know, they take chances. We call it in that word, I'm taking penitentiary chances
Well,
to be able to make
that's what
money.
I want to get to, because help me, steer me correct. I think we're so focused on waiting for that individual to become incarcerated instead of being proactive before that person becomes incarcerated. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's the greatest opportunity is before that
yeah,
person goes down that road.
yeah, definitely. That's why when I sometimes, you know, I went to jail my first time out. I never had probation. You know, I went in first time I got convicted of a major crime. I went in, but normally they put you on probation first, and then instead of on probation, they do something. They just monitor you. Really, they supposed to start the rehabilitation process right there. Putting looking at evaluating you and then saying, okay, you need some life skills. You don't have your GED. We want to make sure you get that. Uh, you hadn't been to college, so we're gonna make sure that you do that. We're gonna put you in a position to be able to change your life overnight by through education. You know, understanding, get more knowledge, acquire some more information. Then you can change your mindset and say, okay, instead of me being a drug dealer, I'm become a pharmacist. You see what I'm saying? You know, so that process needs to be fixed first. That's called reforming the individual before he gets into the incarcerated state. You know, I'm listening. I'm. You see this? It's my prison ID. I keep it with me
You you
because
you you you've been from over there a long time.
yeah, 17 years, 18 years. I've been out of incarceration 18 years, but
What are
I
you holding it
understand
for?
it's 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 something for me to look back at. You got to know your past in order to know your future. It's something for me to look back at to say, okay, I ain't doing that anymore. I'm not gonna choose that criminal lifestyle over a free lifestyle. You see what I'm saying? So I look at that and knowing that where I came from, I can always go back because the doors of recidivism open every day. You know, we got over 100, 1,772 juvenile facilities in the state of the United States. 1,772. So that means the pipeline to prison is starting early through the juvenile process. I went through the juvenile process, not understanding that, okay, I'm graduating from juvenile to adult prison. You know, the same criminal mind state. I dropped out of school in the 10th grade, 9th grade, and chose the streets. That's what these guys are doing today. They choosing the street instead of choosing education, the real education, understanding what education can do for you. You know, now it's various forms of education. It's various forms of, VOTEC, uh, you know, college, whatever route you take, mentorship, getting somebody that's a mentor to you that can help you, assist you, give you some kind of understanding how you can elevate your lifestyle without having to choose criminality to do so. So all of these things, uh, they can come together, but people have to sit down and talk about the issues and what's prevalent in our community, in our society, because prison is a pipeline. It's just warehousing. It's not rehabilitation, and we have to look at that from that standpoint and figure out how we can change that narrative and make it something that can be beneficial to those that get caught up in the system, incarceration.
Yeah. Instead of us playing along and allowing the narrative and becoming a pawn in this narrative, we have to open up and we have to reevaluate. We must self-analyze and say, hey, prior to being incarcerated, I'm going to avoid the being incarcerated for number one. Number two, uh, I'm going to reach out to those that I can learn from, because the more I start studying, educating myself, I'm starting to understand if a person wants to be successful, it's real easy as far as the concept. You find someone that is successful, you find out their methods of being successful, and you follow those steps. Steps are built into place to be duplicated. You duplicate those steps, and then you will become successful. But sometimes we take that model, that business model, and we want to shortcut it, or we don't want to work as long. We don't want to be as diligent. We don't want to go through the full process, and then we fall short of that level of success. But success can be duplicated, and that's what we have to do. But we're talking about uh, how to reduce recidivism. One, we talked about reformulating, redefining. Now we want to see if we can focus on re-education, because let's take the state of Louisiana. The state of Louisiana has about 400 to 500 different occupations where a license is required. But if an individual catches a felony, now they become disbarred from being allowed to acquire that occupational license. So these are some barriers that are in place. So as you mentioned earlier about the reward slash the punishment, an individual is taking penitentiary chances, you need to evaluate that. Yeah. So if you take this chance, well, what are that's a decision. But with every decision comes repercussions. So what are the repercussions behind it?
Yeah, 18, them guys don't know that it's 405 different occupations that has licenses. They chose the street at 18 or 17. So they're not looking at the long-term effect of that particular mental judgment that they just done. You know, I was selling drugs and I thought it was glamorous at that particular point. I didn't understand that outside of incarceration, I wouldn't be able to go to college for over 5 or 6 years, you know, because they got to reevaluate why you was in prison, this, and the third, in order to just even accept you into college. You can't certain HUD housing, you can't participate in a lot of different things. So I didn't think about that at 18. I was just thinking about getting some money or
even
trying to figure out. Yeah, you know, all these are disqualifications. The felony gets me this disqualification. I didn't know that, didn't care, you know. But you know, when you talk about each state has allotted certain amounts of money to prevent this tragedy, in a sense, for incarceration, high volumes of incarceration. In the state of Louisiana, what they charge like $36,000 a year to house an inmate. What if you gave that same person that $36,000 to be as a living expense on the outside? He or she probably wouldn't commit that particular crime that they committed, you know, at that particular time, because they were only trying to get some money or only trying to feed their family. You see what I'm saying? You know, California, $81,000 a year to house an inmate in the state of California. In the state of Illinois, $37,000 a year just to house one inmate. In the state of New York, it costs $225 a night to house an inmate. That's more than that's like more money to stay in the Marriott or the Wynn, you know, whatever the largest major hotel chain in America. $225 a night, $82,000 a year just to house one inmate on Rikers Island. You see what I'm saying? But because the policymakers isn't really looking at the system anymore, they just throwing words out there. Oh yeah, we're gonna reform this and we're gonna rehabilitate that. But and actually looking at those particular numbers and making some adjustments, the taxpayers are paying these dollars. You and I, the people who own business, who own homes, we're paying these tax dollars out, and then we sending them to these facilities. We paying for the house inmate for a year. It don't make any sense. But because we're not reevaluating, we're not eating, we're not looking at that situation and saying, okay, we got to reform this. We got to make some changes. Reform means to make changes. When are we gonna make the changes? When is those policymakers that's making these policies gonna make some real significant changes? They let a few guys out because they changed the mandatory minimum on the crack law or whatever. Yeah. Or what about the gun issues? What about the non-violent crimes? You know, we're not talking about that, and then the reform is never going to happen, or the rehabilitation is never going to happen, because of people not really sitting down and educating themselves to what's really going on in the community. because
So
it's a little distraction.
let's reevaluate that. Let's open it up on the table that do you believe that most so-called labeled crimes or violations to the statutes or to the laws are due to the inefficiency or the ineffectiveness of earning a living, a livable wage, or
Oh
is
yeah,
it
definitely.
done through passion of anger, or what is your concept? Say if you could think back 15, 20 years ago, and you could take 10 or 15 individuals that were incarcerated for a certain crime. Was it were they incarcerated because they were attempting to generate income, or was it for something? Help me out.
Most time is from a lack of education. You chose it.
What do you mean when you say that?
Most of the guys that's currently incarcerated, don't have a high school diploma. The education grade level 7, 8 grade level. So you're not mature enough to think your way through the situation that you're currently in.
Oh,
You
you're talking
know,
about decision making skills. Okay, so the
yeah,
brain hasn't fully developed.
yeah.
Okay.
You're reading on an all-time low level.
Because you've always mentioned something like that, that a lot of individuals are functionally illiterate.
Illiterate. Oh yeah, functionally illiterate, definitely.
Break
And
that
that's
down
what
too.
yeah, functionally illiterate means that you're not able to function in a society that's literate. That's why when you look at countries like Cuba, they say the literacy rate is 98% literate. So they got more they got more brain power being used in that particular state than or that country than in America. If you look at the literacy rate in America, it's probably like 70%, 69, 59%. You know, the more literate, the more literate the people are, uh, the more advanced the society and the community is. You see what I'm saying? Because you got some countries don't even participate in incarceration. They
Yeah,
don't
but
have
you
no.
you mentioned something very powerful earlier, and now that I hear you speak more onto it about the literacy rate, and you equate that to the how the philosophical brain actually develops and doesn't develop to a person becomes an adult, 18 to 20 some years old. So as a young age, if there are over 1,000 and something juvenile detentions, but the juveniles are not able to make a full conscious mature decision, how are we criminally holding these individuals accountable?
Yeah, that's why they just changed the law where they was getting juvenile life sentences for crimes that they committed as a juvenile, like a murder, armed robbery. They were giving them life sentences. They went back and reevaluated that and say, look, they didn't have the brain capacity to understand what they were doing at that particular time. How can we give them a life sentence? Everybody has the capability to be able to change. So these individuals, we got to reevaluate that. Now we're gonna let them experience being able to be released from these draconian life sentences and whatnot. These lifelong life sentences. We're gonna let them go. We're gonna put them on some kind of restrictions out there, but we're gonna let them. We're gonna free them and see if they if they can readjust to society. So they had to do that. You see what I'm saying? So like I say again, most of the guys that's I'm gonna say, and these just my statistics, 60 to 75% of the guys that's incarcerated don't have a high school diploma or no kind of education. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that. But because I talk to these individuals, I used to talk to these guys every day, man, why you in here? Oh, I was selling drugs. Why you did that? Oh man, I was just shit, I had dropped out of school when I was 12, 13, went to juvenile. Most of the guys have juvenile history too.
So
Juvenile
are you
criminal.
so are you contributing that the lack of high school diplomas or the lack of GEDs at such a young age to comprehension skills?
Education period. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the capacity to be able to read and write, transfer your thoughts on paper, all of these different things, life skills. You got people can't even fill out an application. You see guys standing on the corner. You say, man, why these guys standing on the corner? He's 30 to 40 years old, like he can read and write, but you ask him, he can't even read and write. So he's not gonna go out and fill out no application. She's not gonna go out and fill out no application because she got a handicap or he got a handicap. He can't read and write. So he's not working. He's saying, why he don't want, the guy don't want to work. Now, it ain't that he don't want to work. He just don't know how to go out and fill out an application to be able to start the process.
And especially today with there's so much being
everything on the
digital
computer.
now.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's, man, you wouldn't believe how many people can't read and write. That's in their 30s, 40s, 50 years old. Guys that's in 12th grade still reading on a 3rd grade level. How did they get this? How did they get from the 3rd grade to the 12th grade in the process? The education process passed them by because the people weren't paying attention to. It was social promoting them, getting them to the next level. Come on, man, because he played basketball or football real good. The understanding is totally different. So when you look at the incarcerated individuals, if you reevaluate that, if you look at it, evaluate all things, you'll say, man, everybody in this line, in this number, didn't have a high school diploma or had no formal education. And you'll say, wow, oh, this is one of the reasons that we have to reform or redo this system in order to help these individuals, because a lot of the guys in there, they have mental issues, mental health issues, instead of, they don't need to be incarcerated. They need to be restored, rehabilitated to from a mental health standpoint, because
Yeah,
that's what
I'm with you on that,
rehabilitation is about.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And as you mentioned, we have to look at the numbers. Jay-Z said that one time that people lie, but the numbers don't. So you look at so many of the contributing factors, as you mentioned, the lack of comprehension skills, the lack of a high school graduate, the mental capacity, the family upbringing, the community, the environment. Look at all the contributing factors and see which ones are correlated or codependent and look at the result. But until we look at those numbers, and maybe these so-called numbers, I know they exist, but are they being hidden from us, or are we just being disenfranchised into groups and then labeled through media, labeled through movies that this group does this. This is the expectation of this group. This is the expectation of this group. So now have we been bamboozled, fooled in our community to label each other inappropriately?
Oh yeah, and at one point, going to prison was like a badge of honor. Mm-hmm. Juvenile facility was like a badge of honor for the young black male. That's crazy, where young Jewish boys was going to bar mitzvahs, we was going to prison and coming back with the rag on our tied around our neck and around your fist, showing that you had developed as a man. Oh yeah, I survived penitentiary. Come on, man, get out of here.
Manhood training.
Yeah, manhood training. That don't make any sense. And I ain't saying formal education is the only education. That's why Black history is so important. Seeing those who invented certain things and knowing our history, understanding the process, understanding what can and what can't happen. You see what I'm saying? If you don't understand that, then you never gonna grow as an individual and understand that what I told you, I look at that ID for knowing my past in order to know my future. Same thing applies with from an educational standpoint, because information is education, power in knowledge. If you have knowledge, you can kind of change your situation by knowing what and knowing somebody that's in that particular field that can help you, help you grow, put you in, we talk about working from home. We only 1% of people that work from home. Why? Because we're not educated. We don't have those financial degrees, or we don't have the degrees to be able to put ourselves in position to say, okay, I'm qualified to be in this position, to be able to work from home, or whatever the case may be. However, the job we on the front line working, because we in the I ain't gonna say we just on the front line with the job, because
it's been called essential workers now.
Yeah, we working those jobs that's I ain't gonna say they smaller jobs. Service industry jobs. We working those kind of jobs, So we important to society from that standpoint.
But break it down. I mean,
but when you educate yourself,
It's the
When you educate,
service slash face-to-face essential workers that are high risk.
yeah. And but if you educated yourself to the process that you could be in the hierarchy of things, running a company, doing the things that that you don't have to be face to face with individuals. You can sit back. The financial industry, they can sit back from home and work in the financial industry, you know. But we ain't in we don't have those degrees. We not we not we not going to school to be accountants
Degrees
anymore.
or licenses.
Licenses or degrees, either way, you know, because once you get your degree, you have to go out and get the license. You know, you can go to pharmacy school, right, and become a pharmacist, go through the process, but you still have to go out and get the license to become a pharmacist. You
Yeah,
see what I'm
license
saying?
or as they call it. I mean, this is some tricky stuff now. You're right, a license. Then I've heard about board certification and
You got to do all of these. That's why the world is ran on certification. You know, what are you certified to do? I got my HVAC license in my pocket. I'm a certified HVAC guy, right? I had to take a test to get this. You know, I had to become licensed to do this. But I'm saying, you know, go to school. I had to educate myself about this system, about this process. I had to go to school for, then take the test to get the license. You know, I went to school for 18 months, you know, but I still had to qualify myself by passing that particular test in order to get the license. So all of these things, this system works on certification, rules the nation, you know, in a sense. Those who certified, those who qualified to do particular job, that's just what it is. But if you're not qualified to do nothing, then you're not gonna be doing anything.
yeah,
You
because
know,
I remember
you're the
years
same person.
I remember years ago you was trying to hate on some of the brothers down here talking about we just get so scared and nervous when it comes to getting a license.
Oh yeah, definitely. I won't hate on them. I'm telling the truth. Most people, when you start talking about license, dude get to shaking. Oh man, I don't know about that because he's scared or she's scared to go take the test. You know, but I mean, if you're properly prepared, you don't have to be scared. You know, and then if you do miss that test, then you go back and take it again. Go back and re-educate yourself to the things that you missed on that particular test, and then certify yourself. You know, life is what it is. Either you're gonna do something about it or somebody else will do something about it for you. You know, and most of the time when somebody else do something about it for you, they put you in a compromising position. You know, but if you understand what you're doing and know what you're doing, you'll be able to put yourself in a position to be able to eat, be able to evaluate all the things that you need to evaluate in order to be able to provide food for your family and friends. You know, you become the Jeff Bezos of America, providing jobs for people. That's what we've been doing the whole time. You and I, we got businesses, we've been providing jobs for people that couldn't provide a job for themselves because we were educated about the business aspect of what we was dealing with. So we provided jobs for people. And that's what this thing is all about. Don't worry about the distractions. Educate yourself in a way that you can provide for yourself, and not let these people incarcerate us over becoming a drug dealer or non-violent crimes. Or now they making these smoke shops and stuff that they're gonna be able to make money off for billions of dollars. They legalizing weed. We were selling the weed illegally. Now you got a guy sitting in prison for 10 years for selling the weed illegally. Now somebody else that can go out and get the license, he can sell weed at a storefront store. But it's going to disqualify the guy that's been sitting in prison for 10 years. He comes out with the felony. He can't go out and get the license to be able to provide a legal weed store. You see what I'm saying? So we got to figure this thing out. We got to look at this thing for what it is and then put ourselves in a position to not to be able to be incarcerated for such small crimes, petty. Those crimes are really petty. Now that I look at it, selling drugs, being a drug dealer, you glorify that. But when you go to prison, you understand that this 10, 15 years is not worth it. You give you a 10-year sentence for 50 grams of crack cocaine, or come on, man. That don't make any sense, It is what it is. You can go to school to be a pharmacist and make millions of dollars. you know,
because they
to
have the
take the 8
license.
more extra years because they had a license, you know.
Well,
So
that's what we have to
that's
do.
what our children have to understand. Our children have to understand that. What are you doing? What do you want to be? How can I assist you to help you get to your goal? You know, I don't want you to go to prison. You know, I don't want my 14-year-old son to have to go to prison to say that he became a man. No, I want you to be able to become a man on the street and be able to provide for your family free. You know, being a free man, and I'm talking about mentally free, because most of us are enshackled in the enslaved in the brain because we're not educated to what's going on around us.
Well, Brother Marcus, I sure appreciate you and talking to the family out here that's at the table. This conversation will take place on a regular basis, session to session, because until we become proactive in our community, we will continue to follow a narrative that has been designed for us to become the products. And we cannot become the product. We must break away from that. And I'm gonna let you close us out, Brother Marcus. But as you close us out, give us your last few positive words, but also tell the family what we do, because you used it a couple of times, the acronym E.A.T. Let us know what we do when we come to the roundtable. And E.A.T.
E.A.T for us is an acronym which means evaluate all things, and that's what we do here at the round table. And I wanted to say this, you know, those that's been incarcerated need to come home and get involved in the rehabilitation process for those who gonna go in or gonna come out, because a lot of time, a lot of other people get involved and they call themselves having rehabilitation programs upon your release, and then they got these 501Cs putting the money in their pockets instead of providing the rehabilitation process for the inmate, or you know, the people that need the service upon their release. So I mean, we got to get involved, and that's what I've been writing on for years. How I can be an asset to the community by providing a program that'll help in currently incarcerated and those that's outside of incarceration be able to survive in a world that their felony is gonna always follow them. That's why I got that particular ID. That
The
ID
FIP,
shows me, yeah,
the
it's gonna
formerly
always follow.
incarcerated person.
Formerly incarcerated person is gonna always follow that ID. Or every time they run my name, it's gonna show up that I was currently incarcerated. I'm a formerly incarcerated individual. You know, that felony on my jacket. So we got to figure that out. So that's what I wanted to leave you with, and give you some kind of understanding that the incarceration ain't just only in physically, but it's also mental. So it is what it is. Thanks for having me on the show. Well, I'm always here on the show. So the voice of the community, 106.7. Hey, it is what it is.
That's right here in Monroe together. KIEZ, voice of the community, 106.7 FM. All right, Brother Marcus, we will talk on the next session.
Yes, sir.